Hello, everyone. Sabrina here with Success with Sabrina podcast. And today I have Andrea. And Andrea, your last name, oh my, is it German? What is it?
It is originally, yes, it's Fleischfresser, but it's all good. No worries about it.
Yeah, so Andrea is actually from my home state in Brazil. So we're like, we grew up not too far away from one another.
Right.
And I'm so excited to have you here on the show today because you're actually the first coach that works because we focus mostly on business owners, and so you're
Mhm.
the first coach that we're going to be speaking with that actually works with executives and people that are in HR and things like that. So I'm so excited to dive into this because through all the years and all the businesses that we had, and I'm having to, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to I can't talk right now, Victor. No. Okay. I have a big sister here, but who knows? They probably just went upstairs. Anyway, so throughout the years, and we've owned several businesses, I have noticed that most of the employees that are able to grow in our businesses and be promoted and things like that are usually the type of people that see the value of investing in themselves. They see the
Mhm.
value of investing in a coach and developing the skills, especially the leadership skills that it takes to be in an organization and to be able to grow and to learn and lead people, right? And
Right.
get the results that we're trying to accomplish in our businesses. So it's such a tremendous value for people to work with someone like you that have 20 years of experience in this field, that have worked with several people, helping them to change their character so that they are better leaders and to have strategies how they can really take their career, I guess, to the next level, right? I think that's really
Yes.
what everyone wants. So I'm so excited
Mhm.
today. And the first question that I want to dive into, because we're all about success. This is what we focus on. And I wanted to know from you, what is your definition of success?
Well, it's a great question. And first of all, thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure being here. And and the definition of success, I believe that is something that could be different, as you said, could be different for each one of us, and it's all depends of what it's important for us in our lives. So for me, my definition of success is being able to do what I love, which means support people and making people supporting people in helping them to be the best version of themselves.
Mhm.
So I see that is when I see that my work is being recognized, that my clients are satisfied, happy with themselves, and I see this accomplishment that I am with my with what I share with them, the support that I give, I can make a difference to someone else's life. So for me, this is a huge success. And if we talk about a success in a more um, even a success as money metrics, like in a number metrics, more we are able to create an impact in other people's lives, and we have this with this purpose, we're doing this with open heart,
Mhm.
we will attract more people to ourselves.
Oh,
So
absolutely. We will attract the kind, when we do the work on ourselves, we
mhm,
kind of team, like real team players, right? Like people that we can that appreciate, not only, I think I heard this once, that it's being said that, like, in the military, especially in the Navy, I think the Navy guys say this, right? That in the
mhm.
Navy you have two salaries, right? One is the real one, but the other one is being part of that community and being
I
proud
love
of
that.
being one of the people in the front end, and things like that, right? So I think with everything in life, and especially at our careers and our jobs, it's important for us to find yes, obviously, the compensation has to be right, and we have to know our value, right? So that we get what we want. But also, like, what else in your team is attracting the right kind of player, right?
Exactly.
And so that is why, the leadership factor plays a major role, really, in attracting the right kind of people and keeping them, right? And so that's really cool. Now, what can a leader do to become more effective with people?
Beautiful question again. What happened, even going with what we shared before with the metrics of success, what most of the times happen that, and this was my story as well. I used to work in HR and I used to like HR, but I was noticing after 10, 12 years that was something that it was not in alignment with that work in myself. And consequently, I was not being successful because I was not being my full self. I was not using my full strengths and and owning who I am and doing that work. So answer your question now, leaders can become a better leaders for their team and even for themselves when they start to working on themselves, when they start to recognizing what are their strengths, even what they are weakness, what they need to work on. We are human beings. We are always in progress. We are always learning and development. I had a supervisor, like my first supervisor, 6 years ago. He said this thing that is very strong, but he said, when you are done, no, if you think you are done, you are over, something like this. It's like you are dead, because we are never done. We are always in progress. So a great leader is the one who see his areas of development and work on in himself to support others as well.
Yes. Now, Andrea focuses on leadership, but she also focuses on cross-cultural.
Correct.
And I think it's such an important topic because as the globalization, and we live in a world that is so accessible nowadays, and more diversity, right? Working with teams and people that think differently, right? Like this aspect has such a great value and positive things when it comes to diversity and working in teams with different people. It also can create so many different challenges.
Absolutely.
Beautiful paradox, right? And so about that, Andrea, because I know you've lived in Italy for many years. You're from Brazil, now you live in the US, and you work with people from all over the world.
Right.
In your cross-cultural work with your clients, do you teach them about the cultures? Like, what exactly do you do when you approach this, I guess, topic?
Yes, thank you for asking this. So this was, again, part of the working on myself and knowing that what before for me I was seeing as a weakness, my weakness of having an accent and not being fluent in the language, of all these self-doubts that we put in our heads sometimes. I learning about myself, being aware of myself, I was able, even now again with this success question, I was able to use my uniqueness as part of my success. Owning who I am, this was not my weakness anymore, but this is my strength. So I bring in my work also part, as you shared, Sabrina, also part of my personal background and professional background for sure. So I'm originally from Brazil, lived in Italy, and I've been here in the US for 8 years now. And since I started work as a coach, my clients started since the beginning being clients from different nationalities, French, German, Japanese, Mexican, and of course, Italy, Brazil, US. And I'm sad to recognize how because, as you said, because of the globalization, how we can be very similar in so many ways, like we have families or not, but we work, run errands, and do similar things. At the same time, we have differences, cultural differences.
Yeah.
So, as you said, as part of my work in the leadership development, I help my clients to recognize these cultural differences, which is not seeing, help them to understand that it's not about the bad and good, what is better of the other, but seeing that the different can be good.
Yeah.
So in the cross cultural, we have what we call cultural values. So it's main cultural values that we work with our clients, identifying what their own cultural values and what is the cultural values of their home country and the country that they are living, or their teams as well. So, for example, I have a client right now that she is originally from Hong Kong, but she was raised here, and her team is all Chinese, Pakistan, American. She has a big multicultural teams, and in the cultural values as well. One of the values that we talk about is the difference of communication. So some cultures, they have direct communication. For example, Americans, they are considered themselves, American are considered direct communication, which is the communication is precise, direct, like short sentence, very not to the point. Some other cultures, let's say Asian cultures, South American or even Middle East, they have an indirect communication. So the communication is much more sophisticated. We use what you call the messages in between the lines. So we use a lot of more words to communicate. And most of the time, there is this misunderstanding between these two cultures because the way they communicate verbally or even in the written emails, for example, would be different. Yeah. And so many others. So I bring this awareness to them in order they can understand the other side instead of judging or generalizing.
Yeah, and it's really like a skill that needs to be taught and learned. I know it's funny. There's a story that when I was 16 years old, I was an exchange student in Denmark, right? Scandinavia, like it's a very common thing to go for walks. But the funny thing about this story is that I heard is that this guy, he was married, he was Italian and married to a Swedish woman.
Wow.
And when they came to visit her family for the first time, the father was like, hey, after eating, dessert, they had just finished eating. The father said, would you like to go for a walk in the woods? And that's a very like common, thing to do, right? But coming from Italy, he's like, we don't invite people to go for a walk.
No.
Like, what are you gonna do? Shoot me there? No, but it was just fun, hearing this story and thinking about like there's so much being said without words. Right.
Exactly.
And so, but I want to go back, Andrea, to one thing that you touched upon, because I think that's so valuable. You talked about looking at yourself and your life and everything that you've been through and use that as strengths, right? And not weaknesses. And really leveraging that confidence instead of trying to shy away from things because people are going to buy from you because they like you. They're going to work with you because they like you. And you is a combination of everything that you've been through, right?
Absolutely.
That of like, I can do anything if I have a creative mind, right? And I'm persistent and I'm open and I'm loving, right? So one example that I wanted to give you, it kind of came to mind, is a story that, I started my career still when I was in college, going to school here in America, selling door-to-door pest control agreements. And I remember that, at first I was like so scared also because of my accent, and then I realized actually that it was actually a strength because people were they were staying longer with the door open, trying to understand what I was saying. And so it was like, an advantage because I could, leverage that, right? But the funny story really is when I made a sale to a deaf couple. So I knocked on their
Wow.
and I said, hey, I'm here, with this company, pest control, killing the bugs, whatever, right? And they started sign language, and I was like, oh no, I don't speak sign language. But instead of leaving, what I did is I wrote on the paper, and I said, I'm here, to, just sign up a few of your neighbors to get rid of the ants and spiders. And so they smiled and they wrote back like, oh, we have a company, we're not interested, right? And then I didn't give up, like I didn't leave. I just wrote again, like, and I started the communication all in written, right? Well, they were such a sweet couple. They were both deaf. They invited me over. We sat in the kitchen.
Wow.
I made the sale. At the end of the period that I was there with them, they were telling me that even their dog is deaf. So it was such a cute, experience. And it taught me, that nothing is impossible. If you really want to communicate with someone, you
Exactly.
have to be so open-minded, right? And you can really, so that was like my proudest sale out of all the sales that I've ever accomplished in my life. And I've sold some pretty big contracts, that wasn't even one of the biggest one, but it's just, it's one of my proudest sales because it taught me so much, about persistence, about being open, right? So it's really, really cool, the work that you're doing, to help people to learn how to communicate better, right?
Yes,
And believing that there are no limits. I think that would be,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, what are the most important skills? Going back to the leadership topic, because guys,
Mm-hmm.
the ones that are going to be watching this on the replay, we're going to keep going back and forth between leadership and cross-cultural because that's really is
Mm-hmm.
his strengths, right? So, in terms of leaders, what is the most important skill for you that you think that a leader needs to develop or acquire?
Wow. Let me. I believe that is it.
I
It's
can
so.
start this, and then you tell me if you agree with me or not.
No, yeah.
So, like for me, like one of the things that, because I'm a talker, right?
Uh-huh.
One of the biggest things that I had to learn was to generously listen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Listen with a generous heart. And
Mm-hmm.
so that was like a quality, I think, that for me, as far as leadership is concerned, once I was able to really listen, I got so much more ahead with my teams,
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
was able to actually get their agreement in what we were trying to accomplish. And so they were owning it, right? And things just
Mm-hmm.
felt so much better than trying to have expectations and come to people, with this so set in stone plan on how you want things to turn out, right? So being more open to the how, being more open to generously listen. What would you say? Would you agree that this?
Yes, I totally agree with you. Is actually what is coming to my mind is what most people ask to work on, and I believe that's very important is communication skills. So I have also a story. One of my clients, he started saying, "I want to communicate better. I need to communicate better with my team or in big tables, etc." And then we start talking about, and after I asked him, so how are you listening? And he said, wait, exactly what he said. I mean, he said, what are you talking about? I said, yes, in order for us, now for you to communicate well, we need to learn how to listening.
Yeah.
And then we talk about the listening and the listening skills. And this was before Valentine's Day. So the exercise, now his homework, now the exercise, it was practice the listening skills. And it was during in our next session, it was after Valentine's Day, and he was 55 years old man, like with grown-up kids. He shared with me that he practiced these listening skills during the Valentine's dinner with his wife. And he was so adorable. He said, my wife wants to send you some flowers because she was so happy that finally I listened to her. And this is so true because we all of us, we live in a, we are so busy in our to-do list. We are so busy in our lives. With these phones now, we are texting each other. The kids learn how to text. The teenagers, not talking about other social medias that people, the teenagers or young people use just for texting or quick chats. And people, we are forgetting how to communicate. We are forgetting how to stay with each other. And as you said, Sabrina, and listening, and listen to intend to understand, like the Stevie Covey quote says. Now, most people listen to intend to respond, they don't listen to intend to understand. So we need to pause now, be very mindful as leaders to stay present and listen to intend to understand in order to communicate.
And I'm gonna dive a little deeper with this, Andrea, because so sometimes, like, as we're like, let's, if we're in a position that we have several people under us, and like you said, our to-do list is endless, right? There's so much going on, right? And you have to drive business, obviously, right? I think the hardest thing for leaders is that sometimes there are unrealistic expectations that are set with a communication pattern. And so they say, they sometimes start conversations at the wrong time when they're not properly, I guess, equipped to take the time, right? Sometimes I think too that it's hard for leaders to even decide and set aside that much time, because they're like, my gosh, like, we're just going to sit here and I'm going to generously listen when there's like all of this to get done. Like, why can't they just get it? Like, why can't they just like whatever, right? And so, getting like, what would you say to a leader like that is struggling to figure it out how to listen, how to drive business at the same time, and is struggling with the understanding that it takes time to build leaders, right? So what is it like? What would you tell them? How would you help them perhaps develop a different perspective so that they can do a better job at listening?
Yes. Thank you for asking this. And in the society nowadays, now especially here in the American society, time is it's money, as they say now. So people don't want to waste time, and this start doing multitasking and doing so many things at the same time, and consequently, they don't do things in a good way. They are less productive, less focused, and less efficient. So one time a client asked me, how can I multitask better? And said, we cannot multitask better. No, we need to. This is a different mindset. So really the idea of working their mindfulness and help them to understand that if I become more present with myself, more mindful of not who I am, who is the person in front of me, I will be more productive, more creative, and more effective with my work and with my team. Some organizations as well, one example is Salesforce, for example, that they implement a mindfulness room in each floor of their new headquarters. So exactly because of that, because mindfulness is proven that can have a huge influence in leaders' productivity.
Yeah, so it's like, I guess that the mindset would be, you take one step back and you do something that you might not see the results like immediately, but it will set you ahead, far ahead.
Exactly.
What you were just talking about, Andrea, is that referring to executive presence? Because I read this term on your bio and I thought, like, an interesting term. Is that what you're referring to, like to being present? Is that, or is it something else?
Executive present, there is different ways that we can describe, and there is also different needs. Now it depends of someone, what is the need. Executive presence could be the presence as even body language, how I will present myself. This could be in a presentation, now that how I use my body now to talk now in a room, or could be in a meeting, or etc. Executive presence can also come with the communication skills. There is no this how can I use again my strengths and this uniqueness that I have in improving this communication in order that I will be more influential as a leader.
Yes, absolutely.
That and also there is
Holistic approach, like you look at everything that could improve that positive sense, and you work.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Can you give me an example of a time that you were working with someone that was actually working with a difficult employee, and what were some of the strategies that were implemented to shift things around?
Oh, that's a good one. I will take example now because of the topic of the cross-cultural. So one of the, it's very interesting when there is these challenges with an employee or a team member. What most happen, people sometimes take personally, right? So I have this client that he's American, and he was going to work in East Europe. And as we know, most of the countries in East Europe, they are very hierarchical because of the political system. So, and this American, as we know, is much more egalitarian in organizations, like the relationships is much more equal, right? So he was going there a few times, and in his mindset, he was not having a good relationship. He said to me, Andrea, I'm trying to ask my team what they want now with this reorganization, what's important for them, but they won't share with me. They don't tell me. So he was taking very serious personally. No, it's what is wrong with me? And then I told him, they won't tell you. And then he was, what are you talking about? And so this is really about something very cultural. Now in American society, it's very easy to people raise their hand, brainstorming. The leader can come and say, what do you guys think? And it's easy for the team to share ideas, etc. In some other cultures, more hierarchical culture, they respect really this hierarchical level. So the team was expecting him as their leader, boss, to tell them what they would need to do.
I see.
Yeah. So we need to work all in this building trust with their team, creating this connection with them in order that they will be, because of course his question was how can I do this now? How can I will know what is important for them? Mm-hmm. And I said to him, is it starting with building trust, building the relationship. So
very interesting work. Yeah, exactly. So it's just that, and then there you go, right? Now he was coming from an understanding, and he could approach the situation a little differently and get ahead, right?
Exactly.
So how do you help employees grow and develop in their careers, especially when they are working with, in I guess, like organizations that are not necessarily telling them, right? Like the roadmap.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's not a blueprint.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so they don't know
Exactly.
exactly how to, like, some organizations are great in the sense that they kind of show you exactly
Mm-hmm.
the path, and then you just go like, okay, I just follow this and then I'm gonna get there, right? And others not, right? Like, it's just
Mm-hmm.
here and people don't know exactly how to get ahead. Where would you tell someone to start if they were a little confused? They want to grow, they want to become a leader, but they don't even know how to get that done.
Yes, this is a great question, because this is the beginning of everything. I believe that this is really the base of the coaching and the base of us human beings, and starting to know our core values.
Mhm.
So as I mentioned, my experience, I noticed the difference when I discovered my values, my core values. I understood that why my job in HR was not in alignment with myself. So
Mhm.
when we understand the values, so in coaching, we say that the values is really the compass that guide us in every decision that we make. The, the values give us this clarity to our direction, to see our lives clear. And as we know, even organizations, they have their values. What are the values of the organizations, or even the team, the function, etc. So what happened in these situations of the employee, they are not performing, or there are some issue with the team, etc. It's all about going to what are the values of the organization and what is the values of the person.
Yeah.
And sometimes,
Align, right? Does it align?
sometimes it doesn't align, and sometimes they notice, oh, this is why. Now I have more clear
Mhm.
to maybe switch path, no, going to another direction,
Yeah.
or see what some areas that I need to improve.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, tell me about your experience in coaching so many people throughout these years. What is the best leader or manager that you've ever worked with, and why, or what did you like about them?
Um, wow. There are so many, but I remember a few that I remember. I love work with young leaders, but I also love work with, let's say, older leaders, experienced leaders, okay, where they are in a certain age that they are very knowledgeable with who they are. At the same time, they are really willing to learn. I think this willingness, I love working with people that they are open to learn,
Mhm.
that they see the coaching process as an opportunity to develop and to become a better leader, and not just a better leader, because in my coaching style and with the companies that I work with as well, we believe that we are a whole person. So when we are working your professional development, leadership development, it's not just about your career. You are working yourself as a person, so you become a better father, mother, sister, brother, whatever. I know, husband, wife. You become a better person for yourself and others.
That is so interesting that you brought that up, because the last question that I wanted to ask you exactly about that. In what ways can people demonstrate leadership outside of the office, actually?
Exactly. Oh, this is for me. It's what is most I'm most passionate about. Actually, my coaching school and my leadership school is the Coactive Training Institute, and we do believe that everyone is a leader. So we don't need to be a leader, have a team, or work on organizations to be a leader. So we say that a leader is someone who is responsible for their actions, responsible for the world. So this is where leadership starts. Leadership starts at your home. It's about being responsible for your actions in the society. It's simple actions that you can take to bring an impact in other people's lives.
Absolutely. Beautiful, beautiful work. Andrea, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Such important, conversations about leadership, success, about cross-cultural. I love all of this. Love it. You're awesome. Keep it up.
Thank
Keep
you.
going.
Thank you. It was so much fun. Thank you, Sabrina. Thank you.
Okay.